For such a time as this, the courage of Esther. The Old Testament of the Bible. Let me tell you about a young woman who wasn't born powerful, wasn't born wealthy, and wasn't born influential. She didn't grow up in a palace. She grew up an orphan. Her name was Esther. Before she was queen, before she wore silk robes or a crown of gold, she was just a girl trying to survive in a foreign land. No parents, no special status, no reason to believe history would ever remember her name. She was ordinary, and that's exactly why her story matters. Because sometimes we think God only uses the strong, the famous, the fearless. But Esther shows us something different. God often chooses the unlikely, the overlooked, the ones who feel unprepared. Esther was taken from her home and brought into the king's palace, chosen to be queen of Persia. Sounds like a fairy tale, right? But it wasn't. Because while she wore a crown on the outside, she carried fear on the inside. She was Jewish and no one knew. It was a secret that could cost her everything. Then one day, the unthinkable happened. A powerful official named Haman convinced the king to destroy all the Jewish people. Men, women, children, her people, her family, her story, gone. And suddenly, Esther's crown didn't feel like a blessing anymore. It felt like a responsibility. Her cousin Mordecai sent her a message that would change her life forever. He said, "Don't think you'll escape just because you're in the palace. If you stay silent, help will come from somewhere else, but who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." For such a time as this. In other words, maybe you're not here by accident. Maybe your position isn't luck. Maybe your life has purpose bigger than comfort. But here's the problem. To speak to the king without permission meant death. One wrong step, one wrong moment, and she would be executed. So Esther stood at a crossroads. Stay silent and live safely, or speak up and possibly die. And this is the moment that makes her great. Not the crown, not the beauty, not the title, the choice. She said, "I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish." Think about that. She didn't say, "When it's safe." She didn't say, "When I feel ready." She didn't say, "When someone else goes first." She said, "If I perish, I perish." That is courage, not the absence of fear, but moving forward while your hands are still shaking. She walked into that throne room, knowing it could be her last breath. Every step heavy, every heartbeat loud. But when the king saw her, he extended the golden scepter. Grace, favor, life. And through her bravery, her people were saved. An entire nation lived. Because one woman decided fear would not have the final word. And here's why Esther's story still matters today. Because most of us will never sit on a throne. But every one of us will face moments where silence feels safer than courage. Moments where speaking up risks rejection. Moments where standing for what's right costs something. Moments where we think, someone else will handle it. But what if you are the someone else? What if you are where you are, in your family, your job, your community, for such a time as this? What if your voice is the one someone is waiting to hear? What if your bravery changes someone's life? Esther teaches us this. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to be willing. Willing to step forward. Willing to trust God. Willing to say, even if I'm scared, I'll go. Because history doesn't change through comfort. It changes through courage. So when your moment comes, when the door opens, when the risk appears, when your heart says this is bigger than me, remember Esther. Remember the orphan girl who became a queen. Remember the queen who became a hero. And remind yourself, maybe, just maybe, you were placed here for such a time as this.